हाँ संकल्प, आवाज आ रही है? On the मिनिमम फोरम कुछ है क्या? 5-10 कितने लोग?
No, Dada, it's on you. I think Parthoda, we can start with your moderation. It's all in with you, Sandeep and Sankalpa. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you again. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining in. I hope it's okay if we speak in English, right? English is okay, right? Or Hindi ya Bangla mein bole. I can speak in all three.
You speak in any language, we'll understand.
Great. So we were just having a discussion before we began this session. Me, Sankalp, and Sandeep, and they gave us this very difficult task of defining what architecture is at the beginning of the session. And to be very honest, I cannot do that. But I can say a few things about the profession. You must have all heard that architecture is called the mother of all arts. And the reason is that it is a profession, or it is a not a profession. It is a architecture is something where all aspects of visual arts, or even sometimes performing arts and the sciences, come together in one common form of. I don't know whether we should call it art or science. It's got a lot of science in it. It's got art in it. It's got in terms of art, there is poetry, there is philosophy, there is aesthetics, there is painting, and there is a lot of science also. There is physics, there is chemistry. When we think about materials, when we think about structure, it's all about physics. Materials is all about chemistry. There's a lot of biology in architecture these days, because there's something called biophilic architecture that is coming up. So it's an amalgamation of all the things that we study in science and arts in all our lives. It all come together in the work we do, and that makes it all the more difficult to define. It makes it all the more abstract and all the more difficult for people to grasp what is it about. So today in this session we have Sandeep Da, who interestingly, me and Sandeep Da have a very similar line of our lifeline, basically the way our life has progressed. We both studied in Vidyapit. Yes. We are 5 years apart. Then we both went to DPS RK Puram. Then we both went to School of Planning and Architecture in Delhi. We were both in the theatre group in School of Planning and Architecture in Delhi called Spandan, which Sandeep Da had started during his time, and 5 years later I joined. So we have a very similar trajectory in our lives. And he has now, only differences is that he started his own practice eventually, and he has a very good established practice in Ranchi right now called Access Studios. Whereas I have never even attempted to have my own practice, because I had some different, I wanted to do different things in the profession. I wanted to work in very large projects, which I've done, and I'm still doing. And I always felt that if you have your own practice, there's after a certain point there's a ceiling beyond which you don't get, the size of projects don't get bigger. So that's why I never did that. And we have Sankalp, who is in CEPT, right, Sankalp? Yeah. He's an academician, and he is from 95 batch. And there are three, if you talk about architecture schools in the country, there are three which are considered to be the most prominent. And they have very different schools of thought, by the way. One is mine and Sandeep Da's alma mater's School of Planning and Architecture, which is one of the oldest. The oldest is JJ School of Art and Architecture, Mumbai. And then there is CEPT, which was started by Vivi Doshi and Sarabhai family, I think, right?
Yeah, Kasturbai Lal Bhai.
Kasturbai Lal Bhai.
Arvind
So
Mills.
that Arvind Mills. So the CEPT has a very different school of thought. The way architecture is taught in CEPT is very different from the way architecture is taught in SPA, for example. And they are both right in their own ways, and they both have their own values. So anyway, I think I've spoken enough, and I'm just the moderator. I will hand over the stage now to Sandeep and Sankalp for the session.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Partha, for the wonderful introduction. And I'm sure
I will request whoever is not speaking to go on mute, please. I think somebody is not on mute. I will request everybody to go on mute, please, as a respect to the speaker. Thank you.
I think the admin can make everyone mute and then unmute. So is it okay? Can I start now? Can we start now?
Yes, Sandeep. I think we.
Yeah. Thank you, Partha, so much. And as you said, as you rightly introduced, I, in fact, studied my class 10 in 1986. So before me, there was another one of my seniors, 2 years senior, just similar, Neeraj Kumar. He was from 84 batch. He also did his graduation from SPA. So it was interesting when I wanted to join SPA. So I had a senior from the Vidyapit there. So Neeraj was there. So today myself and Sankalp are going to, Sankalp has done most of the work for this to make this presentation possible. And I've been just, we've been discussing, and Sankalp and myself have a very strong bonding that I remember when I was, had started my career in Patna. Then I remember Sankalp came to my house one day and just introduced himself and said, "Ki, Dada, I am from such and such, from Vidyapit, and I want to do architecture." So, and that's how we started. That's how we briefed him about architecture, and then the rest is history. Sankalp is a professor and wonderful. I have seen his work in floodheads area of Bihar. The way he has worked, it's amazing. Meaning the type of work that he has been doing recently as a part of. I'm the chairman of the Indian Institute of Architects Jharkhand chapter. So we keep doing interaction and sessions. So recently, just last month, he was a speaker in one of our forums, and the way he talked about his works. What is very important in architecture is that you have to be very, very passionate about anything you do, and that's the passion speaks in the works. So I'm really privileged to share this stage with Sankalp, and so we would like to start with the presentation part. We have structured the presentation in 3 parts. One is seed. So we thought, why not take this opportunity to reflect upon the architecture of Vidyapit. When we say the architecture of Vidyapit, I'm not going to get into the details of each and every building, but how architecture played a role there to develop the personalities, as we often say, and on the Teachers' Day, most of us said that what we are today is due to our teachers, the way. But one thing is also more very important if we realize what we are today, the way we have been, our personalities also has a lot to do with the architecture of Vidyapit, because that helped us, those spaces helped us to grew in such a way that the way we are, the open mind. So that is one part we like slightly touch upon. Then architecture as a potential career. A lot of people now are in a stage that our children are in a stage of selecting their profession. So just if we could make some people aware about it, that will be a good purpose for this presentation. And then architecture is the profession. What do architects do, and what we have, meaning through some of our works, both of our works, what has been, would like to reflect some of the projects that we have done. So, as I started, as the teachers shaped our personality, so did the campus and the buildings shaped our personality. Meaning, as you see any building and then you start your tenure in there, then you realize that it played a very important role there. Next. Yeah, Sankalp, I would like to touch upon this. You like you to please carry on with this part.
Yeah, I think that thank you, Sandeep, for and Parthoda for a generous introduction, and I must acknowledge here that my introduction to architecture happened through an accident in which I met you, and that was a very struggling point in my own life, and then I remember very vividly that you said that maybe I have done SPA from SPA, so you should not do it. Try for CEPT. And it's Gujarat is good, and that is how it sort of started. So and it started after enormous amount of failure that I had sort of undergone, especially after my +2. But anyway, it's since then it's a history, and it's always wonderful to meet you all the time. So we thought that let's put some of the memories of Vidyapeeth, and especially the campus itself. So Sandeepta was very keen to ask this question, that how many of the people can visualize the fact that that our campus was basically a triangular form. And what happens is that once we keep walking, it becomes very difficult to actually visualize the overall form of the campus. And it almost appears that it is absolutely well planned, orthogonal, and the buildings are organized in a way which is legible, visible. And I think it was almost like, I think, 8 or 10 fields were there in the campus. So I would say that the campus was organized in a way that there was a concentration of building at some portion, but otherwise most of the spaces were open. And if the spaces were open in the way in which the hostel opened to the outside, we were almost every time was connected to the field at least. So if you look at the way the campus was oriented, it's basically a north-south orientation. So if you look at it, the longer portion of the buildings, all the buildings were facing towards the north. And if they were facing towards the south, most of them had actually the corridor or the balconies, etc. So in a way, it was a wonderful climatic response to a conditions which were there at that place. So except couple of buildings which are west facing, like Vijayanand Dham and Premanand Dham, and then Yoga and Akhandan Dham were west facing. But if you remember, except the rooms which were at the ancillaries, the rest of the portions had all verandas, and therefore it was very well shaded, and therefore thermally a wonderful building and organization. But Sandeepta will touch upon in the later part. And so it's just broadly to show you that how the buildings were organized at two portions. Of course, the main central axis was connected to the temple, and then there were ancillary axes that actually connected to the portions where they kept the cows. Sandeep, over to you.
Okay. Now, one thing which really appealed to me so much after so many years, that जब हम लोग थे, I'm sure a lot of हम लोग तो very few people here, कि हम लोग के समय में कभी पंखे नहीं होते. We didn't have fans while we were studying in Vidyapeeth, neither in the hostel or dham or in the school building. But I do not remember any time that we complained about it. मैंने कभी ऐसा नहीं लगा कि इतनी गर्मी लग रही है और पंखा क्यों नहीं है, हमारे घर में तो पंखा लगा हुआ है, यहाँ क्यों नहीं है. So it's a very interesting thing how the building itself, these days, when especially in architecture, everybody must be listening, green buildings and energy efficient buildings. We keep trying to design buildings which are thermally comfort, which are जिसमें AC की requirement कम कर सकते हैं कैसे हम लोग, और तमाम चीजों में लग रहा है कितना research development कर रहा है. बट सोचिए हमारी 1922 की बनी, मतलब एक समय की बनी हुई बिल्डिंग, एंड it was so comfortable that we never felt, it was so well ventilated. As Sankalp said, even some of the dhams which were west facing had verandas there, corridors there. So I was just questioning it to how is that possible? Because they use thick walls, 15 inches, 20 inches thick. Most of the dhams, if you remember, they had very thick walls earlier with IPS floors, which were very cool, and floor also. And the traditional brick tile roofing on the roof, which we had instead of RCC, which can become very hot. So we had those big tiles over joists in most of the dhams, if you remember, and lime plaster. The cross ventilation was a very imminent part of the entire ventilation. We had those windows which had अंदर में glass लगा हुआ था, बाहर में there were these wooden louvers, खड़खड़ी बोलते थे हम लोग. So wooden louvers protected from the heat and rain, but allowing the ventilation. Deep verandas shading the dormitory. So, but these are really examples of lessons in natural thermal comfort, which otherwise we always. Yes, Partho, you want to say something?
Just to add that another thing which added to the thermal comfort was the very high ceilings. If you remember, the ceilings are almost 12, 13, 14 feet high. We didn't have 10 feet high ceilings. So that also added a lot to the thermal comfort, I think.
Very right, very right. So, so that is meaning again we are reinventing those things. But Vidyapit, the architecture of Vidyapit really had all those things in those periods also. Next.
Also,
Yes,
just to add to what you just said, Sandeep, I think a lot of it is had been there in our vernacular traditional architecture always. But somewhere down the line, we lost it all, and now we are trying to reinvent it again through so-called technology. But the knowledge was already there in the vernacular architecture. If you go and study some vernacular architecture anywhere in the country, I think they're all designed like this.
Very much, very true.
I think the other component of the whole master planning was that the buildings were sitting in an open space. There were ample amount of light both through doors and windows, and most of the people had a very good sense of outside, which means almost when you were inside, you had a sense of what was happening outside. And therefore, that experience of connection to outside has remained in at least my memory for a very long time, and it still sort of works where if you're trying to design space, and that is true, I hope, for even Sandeep, that if one is trying to design, it is extremely important to connect to outside, because ultimately it is the outside which is dynamic and it is the inside which is static. And the dynamic is sort of outside because obviously the elements of nature, whether it is rain, wind or sun, all of these are constantly changing, and therefore it changes the moods, moments, light qualities inside the building. Therefore, in the way in which we open up the building, it sort of gives some meaning to the way we experience everyday life in our house, and therefore the relevance of outside is sort of extremely important for everyone. But for me, especially, the ground was extremely important because that's the only memory I have, more than the memory of the school, for example, because this was one place where I felt that I was more natural and sort of more of myself than I was in the school building or I was in the hostel. And I think it sort of, this ground was something which saved me more than I think that whether I was trying to sort of do hard work and study. In fact, I must say that many of my friends, I don't know whether they are there, let's say Mukesh or Madhup and Ritesh, and many of them were actually helping me to cope up with the challenges of sort of mathematical mind of of the way Vidyapit was constructed. Whereas I thought that for me, some of the things like drawing or, some of the, or let's say philosophy to some extent, came very naturally without much effort. And that time, the question about what is aptitude, I don't think that I had any sense about it. And I think that so did many of the generations who were before me and maybe after me. Sandeep, you want to add something here?
No, please go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so I'll little bit talk about architecture as a potential career, and this especially because we may have senior members of the Praktini, and their kids may be interested in pursuing for some kind of a creative. Just a second. Okay. Yeah. So let me say that what Parthoda was talking about, that architecture lies within the creative domain, but the question of architecture lies within multiple disciplines. So in that sense, why architecture is difficult to define, unlike, for example, a doctor who is a cardiologist or a neurosurgeon, is the fact that the question of architecture lies in multiple domains. So for example, if you say that architecture is about making space, then making is done by engineers, is done by artisans. If it is about space, then the geographer also talks space. These days, even I think the IT people have also started talking space. At least they have started at least architecture is something they have started taking over, if not the space. So what happens is that when somebody says that architecture is about designing of space or making of space, the question of architecture, because it lies in multiple disciplines, therefore architects are supposed to have at least generic knowledge of multiple disciplines. And that is why, in that sense, architecture to some extent is generic, because it opens up a multiplicity of looking at various knowledge streams. At the same time, because it is generic, it is also supposed to connect, because eventually one of the outcome of architecture is a very tangible building. And therefore, any kind of knowledge, ideas gets manifested and gets tested in the product, which is the building itself. And that is why it is important for architects to be creative. And creativity means that to be able to connect or imagine and connect in sort of different kinds of relationship for the same object. So there are 3 objects, there are 10 ways in order to connect it. That would sort of to some extent entail into being called creative, rather than one way to sort of do it. So there are multiple ways, that's why one is creative, and creativity requires visualization. Now here, so mathematicians also have visualizations, and they are very abstract and powerful visualization. In fact, some of my friends were extremely powerful, at least what I sort of remember and appreciate them. But this is a very different kind of a visualization where you are able to visualize a 3-dimensional object, and from any direction, any point, you can cut a plane, draw a section, draw a plan, draw from various perspectives, etc. So that kind of a visualization is required. You are able to communicate your idea through drawings, but also through speaking. But most of the time, we say, what is the language of architecture? The language of architecture is drawing. And therefore, the skill to be able to sort of draw. And there's some definition, of course, David Bohm and Einstein, both of them have talked about it, which in some way I've summed up for all of you. So, so basically, this is an important image to just say that this is an opening in the CEP campus, and the dog has found a space and sort of organized herself or himself or whatever you want to call it in a way that is comfortable, but that was not imagined to be used like that. So this is a space by the dog. We didn't, no designers were designing it for a dog, but a dog found out a use for it. What it means is that it is very difficult to imagine the enormous way in which a space can be sort of used, a space can be sort of inhabited. So inhabitation, of course, becomes an important part of architecture, but what makes it timeless is that multiple people, multiple entities can find meaning to it. So it's very difficult to say there is a singular meaning. The singular meaning perhaps is in temples. It was very clear what the temple symbolizes it. But a house can symbolize sacred, a house can also symbolize a work, and house can symbolize a cave. So multiple meanings can be associated in the way in which the agencies of this of the architecture is sort of using it. So that's what this image was just to point
Partho,
out.
you want to add something?
Yeah, just it's a very interesting picture which you showed, Sankalp. Just to add to what you just said, that is another thing which sometimes gives us architects a lot of joy, and sometimes it also leads to a lot of frustration, because we design spaces and sometimes we see those spaces end up being used in entirely unexpected ways by the users, and some of those users gives us joy, because we are surprised that we didn't imagine that it could be used like that, like this image of a dog. But sometimes the opposite also happens. The spaces are being used in really disgusting ways which we didn't imagine that our design could have done this. So that's also a very interesting aspect. Thanks of the work we do, and thanks Sankalp for bringing it up.
Yes, Sandeep, over to you.
Yeah, just one, in fact, one of the quotations which I feel is a very strong sort of the way we should see architecture, what Norman Foster has said, that as an architect, meaning all of us know the definition, but how many of us really, when we do each and every project, how many times are we really reminded of this is a big question. That as an architect, you design for the present, of course, with an awareness of the past, meaning all the wit, all the wisdom that you have studied, the entire history of architecture is there in the past. So what you need to derive from there for any particular project, and for when do you design? For a future, which is essentially unknown. So meaning, we can imagine the type of complexity that any problem can have in architecture, and this complexity is the most interesting part of architecture. As you say, that's the way I see that. Sankalp, please.
Yeah, as because it's a creative profession, it's elusive in the sense that it becomes very difficult to pin down to say that what architecture is, what I was talking about. But what happens often is that that there are multiple ways in which you can look at architecture. So from a point of view of function, you can look at, yeah, this is a 2 BHK as a type, and it's sort of repetitive, and you find some meaning because you have bought it and you are using it. But there are more to it. The more to it could be in the way in which our senses engage with the everyday world and with the dwelling in which we sort of live. So in the way in which the house opens to the outside, it sort of creates a window to look to the world outside, and therefore in some way it also affects our senses. Now it would be very difficult for me to sort of further get into this question of meaning, or get into this question of what we call as phenomenological way of looking at the world. But there are other components, or there are other ways to also look at it. So for example, one can look at buildings which are made. Buildings are functional. They use structural principles, and they uses materials to realize it, and they are supposed to perform functionally in sort of most efficient way. That's other way to sort of look at it. Building. There are poetic ways in which people like Louis Kahn and all of those have discussed that once you enter into a house, it's not a house, it's somebody's home. So there's a difference between a house and a home, and an architect is interested in creating a home, not a house. And that's very difficult, because these kind of statements came around in 1960s and 70s, where at that time the modern movement was at its peak, and the proponents of modern movements like Walter Gropius in sort of Germany, or for example Kahn in sort of US, or for example Corbusier in sort of in France, or Frank Lloyd Wright in again US. So there were multiple people who were sort of meaning the time was extremely powerful. But if we do the same thing today to say that the apartment buildings in which is 2 BHK, extremely typical. How do you call it a home and how do you call it a house? Of course, you do a lot of interior work, but there are these blurry lines between the two, which sort of lies, and therefore it becomes very difficult to dissect it and to separate it out. Though there are a lot of studies which has gone into it, but sometimes later, maybe if there are questions, we can respond to it. Over to you, Sandeepta.
Sorry, quickly talking about as to what is this profession, meaning how if we see, there is a very big question which often people at times, I get calls from people कि अरे तो देखो ना मेरा बेटा का इधर बाकी इंजीनियरिंग में भी दिया था, वो आर्किटेक्चर में सीबीएसई में ना आर्किटेक्चर में उसका ऐसा ऐसा रैंक है, लेकिन ये क्या मतलब क्या करना चाहिए, इसमें क्या पैकेज मिलता है, क्या प्लेसमेंट होता है. So I get really that, meaning it's I don't have an answer. Meaning जो आजकल होता है normally as we keep थोड़े हम लोग विद्यापीठ वाले थोड़ा इससे शायद बचे हुए हैं, बट अगर लोगों के वहां जाएं किसी से पूछें कि आपके बच्चे क्या करते हैं, तो पहली बात वो पैकेज की बात करते हैं, क्या पढ़ाई क्या है क्या नहीं उसकी बात नहीं करते. तो ये आर्किटेक्चर में जब ये पैकेज वाली बात आती है तो और बड़ा अजीब सा चीज हो जाता है. इट्स वेरी मतलब कई बार बोलना भी सही नहीं लगता है कि द टाइप ऑफ सैलरी दैट अ फ्रेश आर्किटेक्ट गेट. बट वही बोल रहे हैं कि वही मैं शुरू में कहा था मैंने कि इट्स सो मच अबाउट पैशन कि एक समय के बाद as you said कि any profession is at first you have to identify your talent and then if you are good at it then people will start paying for you for it, and when they if you are really good they'll pay you really well. So normally when as an architect it's very different from in other engineering branch streams. Other engineering streams are very much on a similar scale, similar level, but here in architecture after 5-year course you do a 5-year course, 4.5 actual course and half 6 months is internship. Then again you should do at least 1 or 2 years apprenticeship as a junior architect in a good architectural firm. So that will give you the real confidence, meaning just a doctor medical science में होता है कि what you learn in college is very different from what is practiced outside. So once you start working as a junior architect, you really get to learn things, basic things, which will carry you forward. And then it's up to you. You should work for 4 to 5 years as an associate architect in firms before you start your own practice. Meaning 10 years is a good time, but anything minimum should be 6 years. Very unfortunately, students, many people who pass out from college, now there are so many colleges also, architecture colleges, they even immediately अच्छा बाहर निकले, चाचा जी के दोस्त ने एक छोटा सा कुछ क्लिनिक बनाने के लिए बता दिया, तो उसको कर दिया, इंटीरियर कर दिया, फिर उसके थ्रू कहीं कुछ और काम भी मिल गया. तो उस रन में you start getting projects, but then the essence of the learning that is lost. So that takes you to some extent, but in the long run, it's a very dangerous thing to do. So that has, meaning that is the type of time frame that is required to really get into a good practice. But as Partha said, it's a choice you have to make. As you said, you don't want to do practice, so you went to a different scale, and that's the way he pursued it. And the other thing is about post-graduation. Post-graduation is something in architecture which is not very, very essential. Not at all. If you want to just go on your practice, you can just straight away go on to, but people are not really, students are not really aware that अच्छा 5 साल कर लिया, कुछ पता नहीं चल रहा है, बड़ी मोटी तनख्वाह नहीं मिल रही है, तो पीजी कर लेते हैं. पीजी करके पता चला कि वो और भी उससे कोई फायदा नहीं हुआ. So it's very important that you need to understand what you want to do in your life. So then you do whether you want to do a master's or join firms as senior position associate, and then of course independent consultants can always do. I see Mukesh has raised his hand. Please, if you have a question, you can, or anything to comment, you can please go ahead.
Thank you. Sankalp, you were just now talking about the job or the work of architect is creating a home or design a home rather than a house. And I'm trying to structure my question, but eventually what I'm trying to say is there's a functional aspect of architecture and there is a symbolic, emotive aspect of architecture. I always wanted to understand when you were talking about the 60s and 70s movements, that why were so many soulless buildings were constructed post the Second World War in USSR, East Germany, a type of, even in London. If you look at the housing blocks that were constructed in London, they were all soulless cement blocks, right? And I read something about it that's called brutalism or something like that. Could you shed some light on that, that why, when you talk about the architecture making a home rather than a house, why that wave of creating soulless concrete blocks came about in Europe?
Mukesh, can I respond in the end?
Of course, anytime, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
over to you, Sandeep.
To continue with that, as I said, and the third one is the academic part of it. If you want to get into teaching, with the number of colleges that we have, teaching in architecture is now again a very, very interesting thing. The good teachers are really, really very needed in this profession. So Sankalp, could you please add on to that since you are deeply into academics?
Well, generally, when you want to get into academics in most of the social science or science field, you will find that a clearance of a NET, some exam by the government or UGC is important. And then you also need to have a PhD. So generally, if you are getting at an assistant professor level, you'll have to get into some of these things. Whereas if you look at academics, especially from in the creative profession, no, most of the people were actually, or they never thought that they will become an academic. So most of them who were in academic in some way or the other by request of their seniors or slowly getting to somebody invited, okay, please start teaching it. They got into it rather than a clarity about that they wanted to be an academic. And I have rarely met somebody, some architect who thought that they wanted to be an academic. Most of them never wanted to be an academic, but slowly, idly, partly, etc., they got into it, which means that from a point of view of all these numbers, which is like, factors when you write a paper and all of those, generally the creative profession has always found it difficult because most of the time they are interested in trying to, design things, etc., rather than trying to mold themselves in the way in which science and the social science stream has been trying to look at academics, which means there is a structured way in which you are evaluated when you are in that discipline. Unlike that, most of the creative field has been struggling to do it, and only of late, many of these schools have started PhD program, because what is a PhD also becomes difficult when you are in this kind of a stream. So generally the academics are always open. So most of the time you start when you are young at a level which is called teaching assistant or associate. And then slowly you move to assistant, associate, and professor. And in some cases, it also becomes assistant, senior assistant, associate, senior associate, professor, and senior professor. So that's what, the various levels are there. And that's how it has been working. So from an academic point of view, I would say that it's not established. It's not as structured as what you will imagine. And if you want to evaluate the creative field in the way in which you are doing the other fields, you will find most of them would fail because of whatever historical reasons is there, which we can discuss.
Partha would like to add something.
Yeah, just to add to this slide, it is so that no one whose children or anybody they know start getting disheartened about the discussion that is happening. One thing what Sandeep also said, that to pursue hardcore architecture throughout as a profession for a long time as a career, you need a lot of passion. You need to love the profession a lot. But having said that, because like Sankalp earlier said, that architecture, as we are trained as architects, we are also given exposure to many other disciplines, including the sciences, arts, social sciences, philosophy, a lot of those. So it is very easy to diversify yourself from architecture and get into a different field. And at least from my time in SPA in college, the people I know, I think 80% of them have gone into fields which are not architecture. There are bankers, there are cinematographers, there are writers, a lot of other fields, So architecture gives you a kind of holistic training, which also helps you become a better human being, I think. So just because you have done architecture doesn't mean your fields or your avenues are closed. It actually opens up a lot more avenues than probably most other professional training does. So that is one thing I wanted to add.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know if people are aware about Ratan Tata himself is trained as an architect.
Aishwarya Rai was training as an architect. Then Remo Fernandez is an architect. So there are a lot of those. So there's no end to those lists.
Ratan Tata recently said that his training as an architect really helped in whatever he has done all these days.
Don't forget Beatles.
Not Beatles, Pink Floyd.
Pink Floyd.
The Pink Floyd band was started by a group of architects or dropouts, architecture school dropouts, I think. But David Gilmour and Sid Barrett, they were all architects.
So just to add to what Partha you was saying is that to some extent you can relate this more to the from the trajectory. You can relate more to film, those film and creative, or you can relate to law kind of a thing. I mean, rather than to medicine or medical field, because medical field in that sense is much more organized and structured, unlike, for example, when you are sort of in sort of architecture, because it is so broad that you can take any path and sort of deviate into a new path, which is a great thing about the profession, is that it does not bind you all the time. It just opens you for multiple things to explore.
If we can move on with the slide, please carry on.
Well, this is an extremely important slide because most of the time you will know that most of the architecture work in India is being done by civil engineers. Of course, what Partha was saying, that the oldest schools are JJ and then MSU and then SPA and then CEPT and SPA and then CEPT, but also this SPA Chennai is also the one which was SAP. So anyway, so the point is that most of the time the architecture work is being done by civil engineers, but in reality, civil engineers are not trained to do architecture work. Their actual job is to execute the drawing of the architect. So the architect is supposed to be the one who sort of imagines, designs, etc. And then structural engineer is supposed to calculate strength. So what should be the size of the column? What should be the size of, let's say, the reinforcement? So they do that kind of a job, and civil engineer basically execute it. But you'll find that because of whatever historical circumstances most of the people have been approaching civil engineers rather than an architect. Now, we can get into the difference between the two also from the sheer training. Because architects are trained from a very creative point of view. Civil engineers are trained from a scientific point of view, though one should not say that the architects are not trained from a scientific point of view. So it would be sort of very because very difficult to sort of get into this discussion, because whatever you visualize is what needs to be done, and in order to make it happen, you need to have a scientific way to approach it. And of course, now it is much more visible with the coming of the digital age. There are interface in which architects are now scripting and sort of trying to visualize various forms which have got, and those forms are all algorithmic, as you know, that because it is digital. And so obviously there is another kind of a movement which has happened in this direction. But in short, as I explained to you, the difference between the architect, civil engineer, and structure. Sorry, there is a lot of noise.
Rahul, Shubham, can you please mute yourself? Thank you.
And just I'll be quick to say that once you have done architecture, there's multiple things it opens up. You can do product design, you can do industrial design, you can do graphic design, you can do structure design, you can do interior design, sustainable design, facade engineering. You can get into urban design, landscape design, masters in architecture design, digital architecture, space syntax, architecture history, architecture conservation, landscape urban. There is no end to the offshoot and specializations once you start or once you have done your undergraduate in architecture. Now, whether you are in Europe or whether in India, there are different levels or, for example, years before you get a professional degree. So for in India, in 5 years, you get a professional degree. In US, you have to appear in an exam, and then only you can sort of, once you clear the exam, then only you get you get the license to practice. Whereas in our case, you complete your 5 year and you get the license to practice. Whether you can practice or not, that's a different discussion. Over to architects to over to you, Sandeep.
So just before we continue, Sandeepta and Sankalp, we are at 5:52, and I think we have just 10 minutes left, and we started 10 minutes late, so maybe 20 minutes more. So maybe we will structure the remaining part with that in mind, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Definitely. So we'll quickly, Sankalp, if we can quickly, because the next part, of course, is some of the reflection of the works that we have done, meaning our firm, which we started around 18 years back, Axis. So I'll quickly go through 4 different types of works, which we have just compiled for this presentation. So please, we can take it up in a fast manner so that I complete in 10 minutes and then 10 minutes we talk about. Our whole philosophy is creating places and spaces that enrich the lives of those who use them. It's a very different perspective, the way I see the way we should be doing our work. So spirituality, we are taking one project, education, 2 projects, one community, and the 4th is in the end is the house, family. This shows the scale of the building that we design. Yeah, next, quickly. The first one is the Yogda Satsang Society. Is internationally the very big organization. It's like Ramakrishna Mission. I mean, not that big, but they have this thing. So in Ranchi, they had a very big plot of land in the heart of the city. They wanted to make an administrative building. So they contacted me. This was somewhere around 10 years back. So we did this administrative building, Paramhans Yogananda. This is a bestseller book, autobiography of a yogi, written by next. Quickly, yes, this is the location of the site in the heart of the city next to the railway station. They have a huge campus of land where the designs were all approved by their office, their organization headquarters in Los Angeles. So yeah, next, the site context. Then this is the site plan which we generated at one corner of the site located. So we tried to scope out the space and make a basement plus ground plus 2-story building. Next. Yeah, this is the plan and how we entered, and being a spiritual building. So the Yogda Satsang is famous for its Kriya Yoga. So people do Kriya Yoga. So they have these devotees who come here from all across the world and to pursue Kriya Yoga. So there's a lot of documentation which goes on into this particular office. So we did this office for them. And this is called Seva Dham, this is administrative building. Next. This is the front facade of the building. In fact, it's almost 8 to 10 years. It's a recent photograph, but the way they have maintained it is exceptionally well. Next. Yeah, these are some of the images. So it was a very different experience to work for a spiritual organization for an administrative building. Though the campus is a wonderful campus. Next. Yeah, this is the interior. As you enter, we created a triple height atrium in which there was a photograph of Paramhans Yogananda, and there's a water with a soothing, very nice feel there in the heart of the building. Next, the look of that. Next, yeah, and the views of inside the interior of the building. Next. Yeah, the next one is an engineering, as I said, it's a bigger campus and 28-acre campus. We did a women's engineering college. It's a government building for the science and technology department of the government of Jharkhand. Next. Yeah, so this is in fact the barren in the middle of nowhere, the way the government allots land to for their buildings in a Gola near Ramgarh. We had a 20-acre campus. Next. So now I would just like to, I wanted to how we conceive any plan, what we do for a campus. So we started with a octagonal shape, meaning in the plot, and then we decided that all the departments. Next, if you could show the next slide. Yeah. So there were 5 departments and 1 administrative block, and the site was a heavily contoured site. So we thought that all the 5 departments can be placed at different levels so that we don't disturb the natural contours together. And then in the middle of that, so that especially it's a women's engineering college to make it an introvert building. And then we have a central courtyard in between where everybody really interacts with each other. And in the front, we created an administrative block. Next. So this is how the shape came up after we created courtyards for all the different blocks. The central open air theater, we created an open air theater in the center. Next. And then slowly they shaped up with along the residential part on the right side of the plot, and this central part with the 5 departments and administrative building, they came sat right in the front of the building. Next. Yeah, this is how after completion. This was inaugurated by remotely by Honorable Prime Minister 2 years back. So this is an engineering college in Gola, near Ramgarh. Some of the views of the central atrium and the administrative block, the entrance gate of the campus. Next. And this is the most interesting part of it, is the open air theater, which is, in fact, as you see, the 5 departments are sitting on different levels. And this open air theater, actually has been created using the natural contours of the site without disturbing it. So which from all the 5 departments, people come here and interact, and this is the spine where most of the activities take place in the college. Some of the views of the same building, same campus. Next, we can quickly run to that. This is a bird's eye view of the campus. The landscaping work was still going on while this image was taken. Next. The third is another campus. This is one of our favorite projects. This is the Forest Research Institute, Vaniki Mahavidyalaya, Munger, Bihar, which is currently in the final stages of construction. Munger is a very, very interesting history. When I went there, saw the fort and all. So it's a very interesting. We had all studied in history, but architecturally, the fort is very interesting. Next. So our site was located next to the river Ganges, the Ganges River. There's a Peer Pahad, very interesting site context. So what is important in architecture, the sites play a very, very important role. We need to go to the site, feel the site, observe and absorb the site, and then design a building according to it. Any building cannot sit anywhere. That's the way it should be done. So there's a government ITI. So we conceived. It was a competition sort of a thing. When many architects had competed, we got the job. So this we designed in such a way that in the mountain, small hillock next to it is the Peer Pahad, as I told you. So we had a view of the Peer Pahad. Next. So these are the initial concept stage sketches which we had developed with the central recreational block, the canteen block in the heart, right in the center, and the academic block and the rest of the block. I won't go into much detail about that. Yeah, just a couple. Yeah, Next. Yeah, this is the site plan, the way we designed the entire campuses. There's a lot of housing and hostels, so all that were taken care in this form. Next. Yeah, the central access and the building placement. Next. The amenities block stood in the center of the campus with a small water feature next to it. Next, some of the views which we wanted to do in exposed brick, but somehow red brick is banned these days. So later on we went to change it and use tiles to make it look like exposed brick. This is the overall view of the campus. Next, this is the central academic block with the amenities block behind. Next, this is the academic block, right, with the clock tower behind over the amenities block. Next, another view of the closer view of the administrative block. Next, the recreational block, the Peer Pahad in the background. Next, the overall view. Next, this is building is almost under completion, final stages. So this is a recent photograph of the actual site, that the front view of the academic block, the front photograph. Next, few more photographs quickly, we can just run through them of the site presently, which is in the construction. A very interesting project in Munger. Then this third project, which is closest to my heart, is designing a resettlement colony for the villagers who were displaced by a coal mine in a particular area. Jharkhand is a mining rich state, so we did in the Hazaribagh district. Next, so this otherwise normally R&R colonies are designed in a very mundane way, where they have single-storied buildings and place it all along with just a road and footpaths. So we designed it very differently, studied the local forms. Yes, Sankalp, you can just keep moving. We studied the local forms, how they were studied. We studied the villages, how the villagers were actually staying in their houses, took cues from them, asked from them as to what are you aspiring for. And then we designed two sort of, as per the resettlement policy of the Jharkhand state government, we designed two types of units, one type A, type B. People who had given larger pieces of land, got the larger houses built for them. Next, we designed these houses and worked out these clusters in a cluster form, because most of the jobs regarding the rear stock, everything, actually in the villages, it happens outside the house and not inside. So that's why we created this series of and hierarchy of open spaces. Next, we can quickly run through just one or two photographs. These are the actual photographs towards the closeout building. Next. So those clusters started coming up very nicely, and people were very enthused with this, the new houses. And next. This is a recent photograph, meaning how they're staying there, living there, taking over. So this project, in fact, we got a couple of awards also for this, because a lot of architects really don't get into the meaning. These types of building for villagers, these places are not really given that much importance. Anybody can really design it, but it's very important how it is built and how the people are living happily there. Next. As I told you, we got a couple of very interesting awards for this building. So next. And last is a farmhouse. Again, I said the scale of buildings we did in Ranchi, the outskirts of Ranchi. It's for an Agarwal family. Next is a site plan, triangular plan, where we created the drawing, dining, bedrooms, and created a nice water body. Instead of getting views, just views from the windows of a building, the rooms, it's very important how you get nature inside the building. So we had a water body and a tree here. So the entire house was overlooking this particular open space and the water feature. There's a certain feature we used. Exposed bricks, we got these bricks from this nearby source area, and we did not plaster it. Most of it, just putty stones in the living room. One of the wall we left with a local stone. Then these are some of the views of the first floor plan, where they had 3 bedrooms over there, and the big terrace, huge terrace, lounge. The photograph you see of the lounge space. Then the rear photograph is the toilet. Next. In the toilet, we have this is the front view of the house. We have leave some concrete faces there, and then exposed brickwork. Next, this is the night view of the front, the same side. Next, this is the in fact the entrance view, where we have the entrance of the house and this small water feature on the left side of it. Next. This is the water feature, which is being overlooked by most of the part of the house, the entrance portico. a lot of greenery around, and so it becomes. Earlier, the client had created this house just for a weekend retreat, but finally, when he started living it here, he could not live in his apartment in Ranchi. He shifted his entire family to this farmhouse itself. So now it's not just his farmhouse, but his house itself. Next, just a couple of few images. We did one staircase wall in entire in exposed concrete, exposed RCC, and we did a mural of during the shuttering itself. This mural was done. There's no plaster, nothing and on that. So it was a tedious process. We had to skill a lot of people. We had to train a lot of people. But then this looks lovely when during the day you have to get the shadows. And then on the ground floor, first wall, we have the lot of nature. And then on the upper level, we have this image of the trees and the bird flying toward the western side during the sunset. Another view of the house during the evening time. Next. Some of the images, as I told you, we left one wall exposed with local stonework. Just pointing to that. Next. Another few images of the house. Yeah, the water feature as looked from inside of the house, and some external indoor illumination. Very budgeted work, very limited intervention, but then it all came up very well. The client definitely was a very happy client. Next. Yeah, this is a toilet, this is a bathroom. What we did was, this is a common thing doing, that a part of it was left open to sky. The shower area is left open to sky. There's a shower inside also, but the shower area is left open to sky so that you get plenty of natural light all the day, and you get the pleasure of taking a bath in the open. Another view of the house. In the end, the happy customer along with the client, along with the mason and our entire team during one of our site visits, architects and training. Next. Yeah, over to you, Sankalp.
Yeah, maybe I'll be quick part of the trial. I'll try as much as possible. So just to give you a quick background of what we are doing is, we have got 3 wings which are working simultaneously. One wing is looking at furniture, the second wing is looking at design, and the third wing is looking at execution. So we do a specialized execution work in lime plaster, bamboo, earth construction, and things of those kind, which earlier was alternate, so to say that. And then these 3 wings are based on sort of projects, sometimes come together, sometimes collaborate with other agencies, sometimes do independent work. So this is a work which is we are doing a factory, masala factory. So it just is in the process of completion. So I have not put the images on the right. Our practice is called Thumb Impressions, and we are 4-partner practice, as well as you know that I'm also an academic and involved largely as well in teaching. So we have a large team of people, artisans, furniture wing team, execution wing team, and the design wing sort of. So obviously our work generally spans in sort of some of the areas are bamboo. So I'll show you some of the work. This is the work which we recently completed in near Warangal. Is the largest spanning structure in bamboo currently in India. This is our office, one of our offices. There are 2 offices, one in Surat, one in Ahmedabad. This is our main office in sort of Surat, and you can see what an architect's office looks like. We do large-scale models to sort of verify the richness of the space or the kind of experience that is possible through the space. So we do all this kind of work. This is the work I'm showing you of the Yogshala which we have done it. So you can see this expression of the bamboo. This is around 78 feet, currently the largest spanning structure in India. And you can see how the bamboo has been used. And this is the space to perform yoga. I'll not get into details of what the client said, etc. But you can see some of the contemporary expressions that is emerging out of industrial modes of production. Then I've been also doing consultants to others. So this is for Bijoy Jain. So this is M Pavilion 3-4 years back. we had helped him to sort of make this pavilion in bamboo. So every year or every couple of years, this pavilion is being funded by one of the organizations in Melbourne. So this is put in Melbourne. It was detailed by us, and the engineers were Overook, which is the largest engineering firm in the world. Does quite, and they are UK based, the larger one, but now they have India office as well. We also do exhibition work. So this is an exhibition work that was part of the mill owners building. This building at the back has been designed by Corbusier, and we were supposed to sort of design this pavilion with one of the other designers, and the entire bamboo design execution was done by us. So this is a temporary structure. So we get into all these kinds of temporary expressions of different materials. So this, of course, you can see bamboo, and the theme of this exhibition was conscious living by design. And then we also did some installations about the spatial possibility of the bamboo in the way in which you cut it. Some other works which we keep on doing. I'll just move to show you some quick details. The small residence just we completed. You can see our focus has a lot been into detailing. Take one element and detail out to its end. So this is a staircase. If you look at it in the way we explored it, it's a very small house, but once you get inside, because of the way we have opened up, it's extremely porous. You can see the relationship of one part to another. The concept is very simple. If you have got a very tight part, you concentrate your services in a way that you give room for the larger space to sort of function. And you see furniture also we have designed. The plaster is lime plaster. Again, we have executed, and all these detailing have been done by us. You see the bedrooms and other spaces. You can see some of the work on the floor. We are getting light from the top. And we are also doing some clubhouses and sort of things of those kind. We are also executing work for, this is a studio Busrite. They do very good work. So this wall, so our execution agency, this is a very famous 5-star hotel in Goa. Just forgot its name. Alila Dew, something. So for that we have been doing this specialized construction as well. I have been also involved in community work. So these are some of the works which I have been doing with community. So this is Bihar, in which post reconstruction work which we did, and just put a couple of images of that. We also design and manufacture timber furniture high-end. So there's some of the expressions I'm showing you. This now some of our product has been bought by Taneira, the Tata product. The Tata has launched this brand. And so right now this is in Delhi showroom. We are also supplying to other showroom as well. So you can see some of the drawings that we put in, some of the chairs that we have been designing. Also now we are getting publications. So you can see that some of them is getting published in good journals. The other part of my work is academic. I'll talk later to sort of briefly reflect on what I'm showing you. But this is the space in which I generally work. This is a CEPT workshop, and I teach construction largely, and my interests are in detailing and in the structural and constructional aspects of architecture. I also do a lot of lectures, both nationally as well as internationally currently. So my studios are of these kinds, largely. If you look at it, in some way, you can say that I'm struggling to resolve some of the problems which the country is going to face very soon, or it is already facing. Is the question of density, and is the question of what do we do with the high rise, given the restraint within which you have to work when you go high, because other forces of wind starts working, and therefore there's a particular way in which you can design structure. So how do you create variations? How do you work with coming together of industrial and natural material, which is one of my main area of research, and how do you look at high rise then? So you can see my students detailing out every nooks and parts of the building, and sort of trying to give the expression to that. And this is the general space of work. If you look at the left and if you look at the right, this is the kind of space in which I generally work. And this is the scale of work which I'm sort of doing as of now. And I'm also deeply interested in how do you make good drawings. And some of my students' drawing, you can have a look at it. Some of our office drawing as well. So maybe I think I'll stop here a little bit and I'll sort of reflect on to sum up what I have been trying to do. Just a second. Have I stopped sharing? No, no. Okay, yeah. See, so let me just sum up by saying 3-4 important things, which is my current area of interest. One, that environment is a crisis. When we were studying versus when our next generation is sort of studying, the world has changed. And apart from practice, it is the duty of the university to sort of resolve some of the burning problem of the time. Therefore, academic institutions cannot shy away from the fact that it is supposed to resolve some of the issues. So one of the issues which we'll be facing is that you all know that concrete is one of the most polluting building material on the earth. And so already in different parts of the world, people have been trying to work with how do you combine industrial and natural materials together. And this is what I have been also trying to, is that how do you combine materials either which has got high embodied energy but more durability, or a material natural material which you can combine but you can sort of easily maintain it by sort of detailing out. So you see that one of the focus is on that. The philosophical focus to me has been the relationship between an expression which is an outcome of the body and its relationship to the force. Let me articulate this and then I'll sort of stop. Many of you are coming from science background and sort of physics background and things of those kind. So structure is a concept. Structure is a concept means structure forces one has to understand. But because structure is a concept, structure is an abstract entity. Now, architects generally search for space. So they are trying to create space, livable space, what you call as home, etc. But space is also an abstract entity. So the only thing that sort of integrates between the two is the way in which we organize material, which is construction. So it is through the agency of the construction that one is able to realize space. Second, one is also able to visualize and to sort of firm the fact that the structure is working, which means the building is stable, durable, etc. I have the last social concern with it is that in our society, we know that we are struggling with this question of caste and communities and religion and all of those kind of things. Students comes to your class and they're coming from various backgrounds. So in the way in which they are coming, their exposure, you as a tutor has to be fair and should have empathy with everybody to understand that what is happening in everyday life, and you are creating a space which is going to be better than what it is, or at least that's your duty. Now, what happens in most of the cases is that the people marginalize people who have been using hand as a way to express. I'm using this word carefully. What has happened over centuries is that we have privileged sedentary posture as against any other posture. So you see that the people who are most of people who sit, and so sitting posture has been privileged over any other form of posture, and in our society it is extremely dominant. What happens in architecture is when you say architecture is a search for space, in some way you have created this abstract notion of space, which is there in all the societies and also there in our own society. So when a carpenter makes your furniture, or when a brick mason makes your wall, you don't say that you don't say the brick mason is organizing space using brick. You are saying that the brick mason is making wall. because you are privileging the space over the material. Okay, and so as somebody who has to teach construction, you have to break that boundary, and therefore what I have been trying to do is trying to say that, look, the makers make space, but make space by organizing material in order for the other space to emerge. Okay, and by doing it, you are connecting the maker's tradition to the abstract notion of space. And by doing it historically, you are making one language, which is space. Now you may come back and say that, okay, the dominant worldview is of the space, and so you are now constructing an argument or a theoretical position to say that in the end you are also making, the makers are making space. Why can't they say that the abstract notion of the space is being made by the makers? Now this is a historical schism in which there is an endless debate to it. We can never get into. I mean, we can keep on getting into it, but it also requires the larger society to be aware about it. So from an expression point of view, that's one of the interests. Of course, architecture is there to serve. It has been serving the power politically. It has been serving the power economically. Responding to Mukesh, the thing is, at any given point in time, architecture is responding to the context in which it is operating, but the job of the architect is to create a timeless building. Now, that's a notion which an architect has. Whether that building is timeless, only history can say that, and it also depends on the power structure that allows and privileges one against the other. So a power can break and create a central vista and sort of make the earlier parliament a museum and create a new parliament to politically state it, and an architect has to do the job. And because the fact is that all events in life, it is sort of housed by architecture. So whether it is painting, architecture creates the space within which you can house the painting, or your everyday life, whether you like it or not, it is shaped by architecture. As a society, that's why it is extremely important, is that one of the struggle in India is that we have not reached a stage where the society understands and pays you for space. They pays you for making, okay? They don't pay you for space. So they don't understand the fact that to make a good space is a hard work. They are whereas many of the societies have understood it. So there are sort of historical baggages, historical difficulties in which we are sort of working. Just last one point, Mukesh, is that what was happening in so the course of architecture is something like
I think Mukesh has dropped off, so I don't think there's point of answering that question anymore.
Okay, so maybe then I'll just end up by saying that pre-Renaissance, we were using this term called master builders. The master builders knew how to construct it, knew how to design space. They were one in all. They were able to assemble everything together. Over a period of time, post-Renaissance and post-Enlightenment, what happened, that this larger domain broke up into smaller domain. Architects started working with the drawing, and the makers started working with the making, and over a period of time, it started separating out. And once it starts separating out, that's why you see these various sort of disciplines which are sort of working, and right now in front of the society, this is what is available, is what I have a submission to make. So I think thank you for giving both of us time.
Thank you, Sankalp. Thank you, Sandeep. I think we took a lot more time than was originally assigned to us. And we are way beyond, I think, 25 minutes now. Anybody have any questions? We can take some quick questions and then close the session in the next 5 minutes or so.
So for Sandeep and Sankalp, here is a question from my side. What is your favorite structure or building or architect which inspires you to create or to teach or to imagine? And I think same goes for Parthoda also.
Who wants to take it first, Sandeep? You're on mute, Sandeep. You're on mute.
I am really inspired by the works of among the Indian architects. I will see. I have been closely studying Charles Correa's and B.V. Doshi's works, and have been really fascinated by the way they have thought about the spaces and the way they have created buildings all over, meaning very interesting buildings, whether it is a very meaning largely used building like if we see in Kolkata, the city center, the first city center which was made, is meaning the whole concept of mall was very defined, that you have a street. Today also you can make streets, urban streets and shopping complexes like that. So that Korea had a lot of magic of working along with the people. And similarly, B.V. Doshi also, I'm really deeply impressed and I've been following his works very closely, the way they have been doing, whether it's IIM, Bangalore, and many innumerous buildings, and his entire life has been has been so much of teaching and inspiring for everyone. These two are, I would say, my ideal architect. Sankalp.
Thank you.
Sankalp, you're also talking in mute.
Sorry. So my favorite structure is what I showed you on the right. It's called the tensegrity structure. And there is a reason why it is favorite is because when you make it, see what is the purpose of education is that we should be able to experience as one of the thing as a maker. Now, when you are making a model using a string, the only way in which the form would be stable is by pulling the string. And when you are pulling the string, you are in unity with that object, because you are experiencing the same force what that object is experiencing. So so that is why it has been my favorite, because pedagogically that's what I am doing in sort of training the students, is to experience. And therefore this has been and this is a floating structure. If you look at it, there are strings and there are these compression member. As far as the architect is concerned, I think I personally appreciate Glenn Murcutt a lot, an Australian architect, for his concerns of the way he responds to buildings. And I have been documenting a lot of traditional houses of the country. And let me tell you, there would be a whole session to just say that we are nowhere close to the intelligence of the master craftsman. We were nowhere close. And I can give you examples and examples and examples, the genius which our carpenters were. And how they were trying to sort of resolve many of the things. And because if you start, I have documented fair amount of India. So we can do sometimes that. I don't think we are very close in the modern building, any close to what they were able to achieve. Even today, we are technically advanced, but in many ways we are far more behind.
Thank you, Sankalp. Well, if I have to answer, my answer is very simple. And I think, in my opinion, two of the greatest buildings of all times ever built on this earth are, one is Taj Mahal and the other is Falling Waters by Frank Lloyd Wright. And I know it's controversial, but it's my opinion entirely. And Falling Waters is in Pennsylvania, in the US. Bear Run is the place. And I've been to the US only once on vacation. And the first thing I did was I went to Bear Run and saw Falling Waters. I had to do that.
Thank you, Sankalp and Sandeep and Parthoda. While you were talking about the beauty and to be of the architecture, so I wanted to share with you and the others one present, because I like to see creation, particularly in art in the form of architecture. If I may share my screen, I think you will love it.
Sure.
What I'm going to show you now. Let me know when you can see my screen.
I guess, yeah.
We can.
Okay. Can you guess where this is?
Is it Spain?
Yes.
It
so,
is any, yeah.
It
It's
is Alhambra.
Alhambra,
Alhambra,
yes.
yes.
So it was 5 years back, and I was like amazed with the Moorish epigraphy. You can see the details. You just stand there and keep looking at. And another thing which struck me while we were talking about was their honeycomb structure, which many of us would know by the name called Mukarna, Islamic art. So you see the honeycomb structure, which gives a three-dimensional feeling. And imagine this is a 13th century, creation with the basic tools which we are not advanced for if we compare to today. And it just gives a feeling, a beautiful feeling, which that's why I asked my question, which is your favorite structure? So one of my favorite structure was, I always, when I remember what's beautiful art, so this Alhambra comes, and I thank you and Sankalp and Sandeep Shah trying their best to bring that beauty, wherever you work. So thanks.
Thank
I
you.
have a question. This is Ritesh, if that's okay.
Yeah, Ritesh.
If everyone has time, 2 minutes.
Yeah,
Sure,
we have
sure.
ample time, Ritesh. आवाज नहीं आ रही है, वो तुम रोक के तुम्हारी आवाज नहीं आ रही है, रितेश। रितेश तुम रोक के कहीं।
Okay, can you hear me now?
हाँ अब आ रही है, अब बोलो।
Yeah, sorry, I was driving, guys. Sorry. Really very engaging talk about the profession that we don't know a lot about. So really appreciate all of your insights. My question is more forward-looking. In every aspects of our life, I'm seeing some of these advances, like we talk about AI, artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotics, automations playing a significant, almost disrupting our lives altogether. So my question is, how, if at all, you see that impacting how architecture is practiced today? And are these the disruptions that's coming for architecture, or are there other disruptions that you guys envision coming in near future?
Who wants to take that question? I can, but if Sandeep,
Sandeep, you want? Then
No,
Yeah.
I was going to say that Partho, why don't you answer that? You are more into working, must be with these types of things. Please go ahead.
Okay, so I will try and be answered very quickly because we are running out of time. But see, yes, there is a lot of talk in AI in architecture. Now, I currently I'm working on a certain kind of projects which are called data centers. So this Zoom call we are doing, we are using a lot of cloud space. The data has to be stored somewhere. All over the world, people are building millions of square feet of data centers to just enable all these things that we're doing, our smartphones, our banking transactions, our Zoom calls. And data centers, mind you, are they have the largest carbon footprints in buildings. They're energy guzzlers. They're like the SUVs of buildings, right? So, but data centers are buildings for machines, right? They're hardly any human beings. In a data center, which is 2 lakh or 3 lakh square feet, there will be probably 20 people working there. The design is also very engineering focused. There are server racks, and there are air conditioning chillers, and then there are diesel generator sets. There is a lot of talk, and actually I am also trying to think about it, that why are we sitting and every time we have to design a new data center, why are we sitting and making the drawing and making 1,000 drawings and getting it built? Why can't we devise or design a program? You feed in your requirement, you say, my data center will need 600 racks. This is the power requirement. This is the cooling requirement. It will design it for you, because they are just rectangular boxes which are placed together, right? And the relationship between the spaces doesn't change for a data center. So yes, it might happen, but it's not happening anytime very soon. That I can tell you, because the focus of the developers and the engineers, the software engineers, is not architecture right now. But yes, there is 3D printing already has come in. So people are in Dubai, in China, people are building buildings using 3D printers. Livable actual buildings. So technology is going to impact. So once you can actually just download a design from the internet, feed it to a 3D printer, and build your house in say 20 hours, why do you need an architect? So yes, there is going to be disruption, but it's not happening anytime very soon. These technologies are all in very nascent stages, and maybe 30 years, 40 years, 50 years down the line, our profession might start becoming redundant. That's all.
Ritesh, there are multiple things which are happening. There is no one thing which are happening. There are as the technological revolution is moving way, way ahead. So we started from hand to simple machine to automation to mechanization to artificial intelligence. So we are progressively sort of moving. Still, when you move to an extreme, there are few things which also becomes important. So for example, with moving of technology and all of those, the environmental movement has also gained much more attention now. Okay, so I imagine to be always crossover, where technology will happen, we have to accept it. The issues that are important right now for architecture is that you are now making a box which is artificially cooled. Basically, what you are making is you are making a box which is artificially cooled. So this whole concept of sections, what we call in architecture, jisme hota tha chhajja, all of these can be gone, because what I have to do is somebody is going to calculate thermal load, and then they will give you how much light, natural light you sort of need, and you can just make a dabba, get away with it. But what will happen is over a period of time, many people will find that environment very stale, and they will start finding an alternate space. So that I'm just saying, responding from history and precedents, that as one goes extreme, the other starts working. So it is always this back and forth, this cyclic things which is going to happen. But we have to accept change. So for example, 3D printing now they're working to do, how do you do earth? So how do you use earth to do 3D printing? So basically, because the environment is in crisis, so you are using technology, but R&Ds are now are getting put into some of these things. So ye sara cheez hoga, and they are in some way they are going to be disruptive, but you have to constantly change yourself. But you have to understand what is constant. I mean, are you making so I can give you a house in which you are air cooled. Do you want that? Or do you want more? What is that more is the discussion which is always going to remain. Because human beings are never going to stop. One after another experience, after third experience, that's what is going to happen. So yes, disruption will happen, but at the same time, all time which has moved has embraced technologically their time. But there has also been a counter movement as well in all the time. The only thing is you will recognize those people later. So I think that's how it moves. Perhaps that's how it will move.
Thank you, Sankalp. I think we have already taken up a lot more time, and I also have some other engagements I wanted to. So if it's okay, if you guys wanted to continue, Ritesh, is it okay if I drop off? I have some other things lined up.
No. Yeah. Go ahead, Ritesh. The other Ritesh.
Ritesh Chaturvedi. He's gone.
You're on mute.
He's frozen actually.
Rahul has a question. So Partha, I think if you
no, Rahul can coordinate. Rahul can do that.
Let Partha go, and maybe Rahul can connect with him personally, because I know he has other engagement, right? So
no, Rahul, Sankalp and Sandeep are here. I have some. Actually, I'm already late for something I'm supposed to do.
Go ahead,
you guys please continue. Thank you so much.
No
Please,
problem.
please, thank you,
Please go ahead,
Partha.
Partha.
Thanks, Partha.
Yes, Rahul.
Yes, first of all, very nice presentation as well. And my apologies, मेरा थोड़ा ambience noise है. So my question was, and any one of the other could answer it, basically related to architecture. So in modern days, I mean the modern society, the gated community, tall rise, like high-rise buildings and all, we see. So most of the time we see, I mean, to get the customers, I mean the home buyers, whoever is buying a home to live. So I can see in all these societies, so the playground areas of children, for children, then kids play area are very much compromised, and most of the so these kinds of societies doesn't have like ample space that if I can say like 20 to 25 towers are there, but there is not sufficient playground and kids playing area there for the residents, kids and all to play. But most of the societies, their what do you say, the USP, the selling points, the main attraction points. So we have a golf course in our society. So I would like to understand what is this marketing strategy that, I mean, obviously, I mean, golf course में आप अच्छे खासे बड़ा area को capture कर सकते हैं. I mean, जगह की कमी तो है, बट स्टिल बिल्डिंग जब एरिया में बनती है तो वहाँ पे आप गोल्फ कोर्स बना रहे हो, बट उस गोल्फ कोर्स वाले एरिया को आप प्लेग्राउंड्स के लिए डेडिकेट नहीं कर रहे. मतलब बड़ों का खेलने का प्लेस को, स्पेस को हम ज्यादा वैल्यू दे रहे हैं, राइट? बट उसी बिल्डिंग में परिवार के जो किड्स रहते हैं उनको खेलने के लिए नहीं मिलता है. I mean, imagine, I mean, we all know, like, we are from Vidyapeeth and we are very privileged that we got some like good amount of playgrounds to play around and on for outdoor activities. But in modern societies, we don't find. So, what is the idea behind such kind of planning? I mean, is it like purely money? Because obviously golf course and all could be chargeable. Other लोग membership होता है golf club का and all. और like मतलब मुझे ये नहीं समझ आता कि हम बच्चों के फ्यूचर के साथ क्यों ऐसा कॉम्प्रोमाइज करते हैं कि जब वो ग्राउंड है उसको गोल्फ कोर्स बना दे रहे हैं, बट ऐसा प्लेग्राउंड नहीं बना. प्लेग्राउंड में प्लेग्राउंड के नाम पे ऐसे 2-4 स्विंग रख दिए, स्लाइड्स रख दिए, छोटा सी घास वाले एरिया दे दिए, एंड दैट्स इट. सो आई वांटेड टू अंडरस्टैंड फॉर दैट. And how do we change it? Do we need any kind of disruptive designs or some kind of thought processes to change this, or I mean anything, because stakeholders, end users तो हम ही लोग हैं. And कोई भी फैमिली जब घर खरीदती है तो ऑब्वियसली अपने किड्स के भी फ्यूचर प्लान, सेफ्टी एंड ऑल देखती है कि हाँ आसपास के एनवायरनमेंट. बट पता नहीं, आई एम कंफ्यूज कि ये बायर एंड से भी कंफ्यूजन है या सेलर्स ही लोग ऐसा बेच रहे हैं तो हमारे पास भी और कोई ऑप्शन नहीं है. बिकॉज आई एम श्योर कि फैमिली तो यही चाहेगी कि यार मेरे को ऐसे जगह में घर लूँ जहाँ पे मेरे बच्चे भी खेल सके, वहाँ पे स्पेस हो अच्छा है खेलने का. खासकर क्या होगा. दैट्स इट. इफ आई एम लाइक क्लियर इन माय क्वेश्चन, जस्ट वांट टू नो द इंटेंशंस बिहाइंड सच काइंड ऑफ प्लान इन मॉडर्न सोसाइटी.
I'd like to first respond to that. I think it's a very, very, very valid point that you said. Meaning, I am also, we keep designing this housing complexes and all. So, but as you rightly pointed out, absolutely very, very essential thing. But आजकल जो marketing वाली चीजें होती हैं, the first USPs are the flat has to be designed वास्तु compliant. Meaning the USPs on which जो customers आते हैं, they see कि हाँ ये है कि नहीं, ये है कि नहीं. तो those things उसमें उस priority में कहीं ना कहीं the children's play area is meaning something which is quite neglected. I do agree with you, and I totally find reason. Meaning, if I see my own introspect myself also, so we are at times driven by what the developers ask to do. कि ये मतलब features उनकी listing में कहीं ना कहीं children's play area, as rightly said, children's play area is normally thought as जो kids का एक बहुत छोटे बच्चों का ये इसके लिए. But the larger the type of I'm sure in larger projects, because the play fields they require huge space of land. Meaning at the max what people do is badminton court bana diya. But larger grounds like that, although meaning the group housings are designed at 35% ground coverage, meaning 35% is the maximum that is allowed to be covered. Meaning I'm talking about the bylaws which follow here. In bigger places with less. 65% is supposedly to be open. So 65% is not less. But then once the roads and other networks are became, the hardly much space left for the playgrounds and all. So at least in some, but I totally agree with you that much more emphasis should be there. It's mostly due to the economics part of it. As a developer sees not much point in leaving space for that, rather than instead of one ground, if we can show 5 different points within that open space for different sections of the family, so they find it more saleable proposition. That would be my response to that.
Well, just to add to him, there are a couple of points which we should know कि 20 साल पहले एजेंसी जो था, आपके पास एक एजेंसी होता है, आप बोलते हो किसी आर्किटेक्ट को हायर करने का, आप एजेंसी आपके पास है, आप बोलते हो कि डिजाइन करके हमको बना के दो, ठीक है। आर्किटेक्ट आपको बोलता है कि ये कॉन्ट्रैक्ट है, या आप कॉन्ट्रैक्टर लाते हो जो भी करके बना देते हैं। अभी क्या है कि वो एजेंसी जो है वो आपके पास नहीं है। आप चाहते हैं कि पैसा खर्च करें, एक सिंगल टर्न एक आदमी को दें, वो हमको एक टिपिकल कुछ बना के दे दे, ठीक है। पहला चीज ये होता है। अब दूसरा चीज क्या है कि कॉस्ट ऑफ लैंड बहुत हाई है, ठीक है। बायलॉज आपको बोलता है 10% जो है ना कॉमन ओपन स्पेस देना चाहिए। वो 10% में जो होता है क्योंकि जो लैंड प्राइस है वो इतना ज्यादा रिलेटेड है ये सब चीज से, FSI से, कि वो लैंड प्राइस वर्सेस, मान लो अगर वो एक टावर बनाते, एक टावर में मिनिमम 40 यूनिट होगा, उसका कोऑर्डिनेशन लैंड प्राइस से होता है, उसका कोऑर्डिनेशन आप कितना बेचता है उससे होता है। ये सारा चीज इंटर रिलेटेड होता है। सो इफ अ सोसाइटी इज कन्विंस्ड कि व्हाट इज इंपॉर्टेंट फॉर सेलिंग इज अ प्लेग्राउंड, देन दे विल मेक इट। सो आई एम डूइंग अ प्रोजेक्ट फॉर अ डेवलपर जहां पे फॉर देम दे आर सेलिंग फ्रॉम अ पर्सपेक्टिव ऑफ चिल्ड्रन। सो वी हैव मेड 3 स्मॉलर प्लेग्राउंड्स, वी क्लब हाउस में एक बड़ा सा स्पेस डाल के छोटा रनिंग ट्रैक बनाए हैं, उसके बाद फुटसल बनाए हैं, उसका ये वॉलीबॉल ग्राउंड बनाए। बिकॉज व्हाट वी आर ट्राइंग टू लोग क्यों लेगा आपको सी, बिकॉज एज एन आर्किटेक्ट एंड इट्स वेरी डिफिकल्ट जॉब बिकॉज इट इज ऑल द टाइम रिलेटेड टू फाइनेंस, टू कन्विंस कि यू हैव टू इन्वेस्ट। बिकॉज आप अगर दिखाओ कि ये बच्चा के लिए खेलने का इतना बड़ा ग्राउंड है, then you will get more clientele to buy because there's a target. All of these people study well, they do survey वगैरह करके पता करते हैं कि हम अगर इतना टिकट साइज का बना रहे हैं तो फिर ये मेरे को इसमें प्रॉफिट होगा और ये सब होगा। सो जो हम लोग सिंगल एजेंसी का बात करते थे कि हमारे पास पैसा है, रिटायर हुए, हम एक आर्किटेक्ट को बोले, अब उसके बदले 500 आदमी एक एजेंसी को पैसा देता है, वो आपको एक टिपिकल लेआउट बना के देता है, ठीक है। सो हम लोग भी तो काफी मिले, क्योंकि अल्टीमेटली आप जो सिंगल हाउस बना रहे हो वो जनरली बड़े शहर में एलिट के लिए बना रहे हो। छोटे शहर में ठीक है अभी भी इंडिविजुअल के लिए बना है, बट बड़े शहर में एलिट के अलावा और कोई एक्सेस ही नहीं कर सकता, बना ही नहीं सकता है। सो इकोनॉमिक्स ऑफ अप्रोच टू हाउसिंग हैज चेंज ड्रामेटिकली। सो आप एंड उसका और भी लॉजिक है, आपको मेंटेनेंस, आप अपार्टमेंट रहते हो, इट इज सेफ, इट इज इजी टू मेंटेन। आप अगर इंडिविजुअल हाउस बनाओगे तो आप उसको मेंटेन करने में आपको जो चीज चाहिए, तो बहुत सारा चीज एक साथ है। बट इन द ओनली वे इन विच यू विल गेट अ ग्राउंड इज व्हेन इट विल सेल, अनफॉर्चुनेटली दैट्स व्हाट आई एम सेइंग। और सरकार पुट्स अ मैंडेटरी लॉ टू से दैट देयर इज नो वे, आई मीन मतलब इतना बिल्डर से बात करके, बिकॉज दे आर spending money, because उनका वो they look at housing as investment, they don't look at as your home. You are looking at as your home. So there are a lot of things which has changed.
Yes, thank you Sangal. Just small addition वही कि मतलब as a buyer also, when you, I mean I'm sure you guys don't interact with the end users that much, you guys interact with the builders or the developers, but वही मैं समझना चाह रहा हूँ कि as a family भी कोई घर खरीदना चाहता है तो लाइक इमेजिन ए स्मॉल फैमिली ऑफ लाइक 4 लाइक फादर मदर, तो यार उसको खरीदने के लिए कैच पॉइंट क्या होगा वो, बिकॉज आजकल पता नहीं, मैं पुणे में रहता हूँ तो मैं बहुत सारे ऐसे कम्युनिटीज और सोसाइटीज देख रहा हूँ जो मतलब लिखा रहता है कितना स्क्वायर फीट एरिया का, मतलब ऑब्वियसली गोल्फ कोर्स है हमारे, मतलब गोल्फ कोर्स को वो पता नहीं किस तरह से मतलब प्रमोट करके भी। तो मैं भी सोचता हूँ कि जब वो फैमिली भी घर खरीद रहे हैं तो उनका क्या माइंड में रहता है, बिकॉज गोल्फ कोर्स में तो पापा ही खेल पाएंगे या मम्मी खेल पाएंगे, बच्चा तो पता नहीं क्या ही खेलेंगे। talking about kids are under 10 years of age. मतलब वो फैमिली भी जब घर खरीदेगी तो वो ये देख के खरीदेंगे कि मेरे पास गोल पोस्ट है या मेरे बच्चों के पास खेलने का एरिया नहीं है, मेरा खेलने का एरिया, मतलब प्रायोरिटी पेरेंट्स अपने खेलने के एरिया को ज्यादा देते हैं. Anyway, I mean, thanks, Kalpana.
Thanks, Sankalp. Thanks, Sandeep. I think we thoroughly enjoyed this session, and hopefully we will get on another topic of your choice, which could be interesting for us for our next session. And also thanks to all the participants in the audience. I hope you enjoyed it. We will upload this video on our YouTube channel, and whoever has missed out on this, they can access it. And our next Adda is on oncology by one of the very prominent oncologists in India. He is an alumni, Dr. Kar. And it will be organized on 23rd October. Details will follow. So if you are interested in the oncology discussions, how to spot the symptoms and what to do about it, this will be a session for you. With your permission, Sandeepda and Sankalpa and the audience, I would like to stop recording and close this session. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And thanks.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Sandeep.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you, everyone.